Good morning, everyone. Making a minyan. We are continuing in Siman Reish Nun Bet. Seif Hey, more cases of things that you start off before Shabbat that continue into Shabbat. The Shulchan Aruch says, Mutar liftoach maim legina, like before Shabbat, you're allowed to open up water to your garden. Vehem nimshachim veholchim b'chol Shabbat, and they're continuing to go the entire Shabbat. They would have irrigation fields. So you have a river, and then you have like little dams that block the river to go to your field, and then sometimes you would open that dam, and then the water would flow from the river through your field to irrigate your field. So you're allowed to do that, to open that up before Shabbat, even though the water is going to be flowing through the entire Shabbat and watering your field. Watering on Shabbat is part of Zoreah, part of planting. You're not allowed to do that on Shabbat, but if it started before Shabbat, you're allowed to continue it to go throughout Shabbat. And therefore, there's a modern day halacha application to this. Is we know now it's the summertime. We walk and sometimes we see sprinklers going on people's lawns. So the Yakut Yosef brings down that if a person sets his timer to the sprinklers to go on every day at a certain time, you could even set it before Shabbat to go on Shabbat, and it could still be okay. It sounds like a chidush, but just like you have a timer for your food, you have a timer for your lights, you could also have a timer for the water to go on. You set it all before Shabbat, then it could work out. So he says that at the beginning of timers, people weren't used to this thing, so he would have to put out a sign to say, what, by the way, this is a timer, a Shabbat timer, water, thing. It's not, I'm not putting on the water now on Shabbat to water my grass. This is from a Shabbat timer. So nowadays, if people know that there's a concept of timers, then you don't have to put out that thing. But if you feel that some people might not know, whatever, tell people around, by the way, this is a timer. It's not, obviously I didn't put it on Shabbat, etc. Shulchan Aruch continues with another case. V'lahaniach kilor ave al ha'ain. So this is talking about putting seems like a patch on your eye. A person has his eye is not well, and he has a patch, and inside that patch, so there's some sort of ointments that can help your eye heal. Even though it's asur to put on your eye on Shabbat, because medicine is asur on Shabbat, and you get into that if it's life-threatening, if it's a different topic for right now, but in general, medicine is not allowed. So now, so putting this on Shabbat is not allowed, but you could put it on before Shabbat, even though it's a process. It takes time for this thing to heal you, and it's healing you throughout Shabbat. Because you put it on before Shabbat, you're allowed to do that. And also, another case the Shulchan Aruch brings down is, back in the day they would have a thing called mugumar. Mugumar is just like you have, maybe some people have like incense. So to make your room smell nice, they have these little wood things. You light it, and it makes a little bit of smoke, and the room smells nice. So they would do that for their clothing after it's laundered. They would put the clothing in a room or hanging, and they would put these nice incense to make their clothing smell nice. So you're allowed to do that before Shabbat. So you light it before Shabbat, and now it takes time for this thing to burn. So it's burning the entire Shabbat, and it's making your clothes smell good because it started before Shabbat. You're allowed to do that. And even if the mugmar is in a kli, we already spoke about enadam mitzvah shvidat kelim. You don't have to. If your kli does something for you on Shabbat, it's not a problem. If your animal does something for you on Shabbat, that is an issue. You have to make sure your animal doesn't violate Shabbat, but your kelim, your vessels could. In the last case, you're allowed to put barley in a barrel in water in order to start the process of fermenting for beer. You can't do that on Shabbat for the first time, but you could start it before Shabbat, even though it's continuing to happen over Shabbat. Because you started it before Shabbat, you're allowed to do that. We'll continue tomorrow with more cases from the Shulchan Aruch. Minchat tonight at 7:10. Have a good day, everyone. Tana D'Eliyahu.